The Farmer Who Harvested His Family's Blood, Arkansas, 1854. This record was discovered where history chose to forget itself. In the dust-covered archives of Arkansas, between documents that time corroded and memories that reason rejected, we uncovered fragments of something that perhaps should never have been revealed. If you remain with us until the end of this journey through the shadows of the past, perhaps you will understand why this file remained sealed for so long. Mark this moment with your presence, leave your trace in the comments, share this forbidden knowledge with those who seek truth beyond the veil of official history. For what you are about to hear is not merely a narrative, but an echo that resonates through the centuries, waiting for souls brave enough to listen. In the year 1854, in the frontier lands of Arkansas, where endless cotton fields stretched beneath merciless summer skies and the Mississippi River whispered ancient secrets to those who dared to listen, the inhabitants lived their ordinary lives, unaware that beneath their feet rested secrets the very earth tried to keep buried. The township of Millfield rose like a stubborn scar upon the wilderness, its dirt roads echoing with the footsteps of settlers who had carved their existence from unforgiving soil. The air carried the scent of wood smoke, fresh-turned earth, and the ever-present humidity that clung to everything like an unwelcome blessing. Church bells marked the rhythm of daily life, while the distant sound of axes biting into timber reminded all that civilization here was still a fragile thing, constantly threatened by the return of the wild. It was in this seemingly peaceful setting that what locals would later call the harvesting began to manifest. The first reports speak of Ezekiel Thornfield, a farmer whose modest homestead lay 7 miles east of Millfield proper, where the tree-line grew thick and the nearest neighbor was a day's ride away. Those who observed him closely noted that his crops grew with an unusual vigor, his soil darker and richer than any in the county, despite the drought that had plagued the region for 3 consecutive seasons. Reverend Samuel Wickham was the first to document the peculiarities surrounding the Thornfield farm, writing in his weekly correspondence to the Baptist Mission Society words that today we read with a chill of recognition: "Brother Thornfield's harvest surpasses all natural expectation. His corn stands tall when all others wither, his cotton blooms white as fresh snow while his neighbors' fields turn brown as old blood. I fear there are methods to his success that no Christian man should contemplate." He did not know, in that moment, that he had just opened a door that would lead to revelations that would test the very foundations of faith and reason. The documents that reached us are fragments of a reality that seems to have been deliberately erased from official records. Personal letters, marginal notes in church registries, diary entries, all tell a story that the authorities of the time preferred to ignore. Hidden in the basement of the old Millfield courthouse, beneath records of land disputes and tax assessments, we discovered evidence that County Sheriff Marcus Holt had initiated a discreet investigation into what he termed unnatural agricultural practices at the Thornfield property. The sheriff, a methodical man known for his detailed reports, conducted interviews with traveling merchants, neighboring farmers, and even the occasional drifter who had sought shelter at Thornfield's door. In his confidential notes, we find references to what he called the Crimson Implement, a farming tool that witnesses described with trembling voices and averted eyes. The few who claimed to have seen it spoke of an ancient-looking scythe, its blade darker than any metal they knew, its handle carved with symbols that hurt the eyes to look upon directly. Attempts to examine this implement more closely resulted in what Sheriff Holt described as a profound unease that settles in the bones and refuses to depart, leading him to write in his final report, "Some things in this world resist human understanding with such force that wisdom lies in stepping away, not pressing forward." As the investigation progressed, those involved began to exhibit changes that went beyond mere unease. Witnesses who initially cooperated started refusing to speak about their experiences, claiming they could no longer remember clearly what they had seen. Others reported dreams filled with the sound of grinding metal and the whisper of grain falling into wooden bins that seemed to echo from some impossible depth. Dr. Abraham Fletcher, the county's only physician, noted an unusual number of patients complaining of what he termed blood disorders, not illness, precisely, but a feeling that their very life essence had been somehow diminished. Parallel to these modern concerns, we discovered that Cherokee oral tradition had long warned of what they called the hungry ground, in the area where Thornfield's farm now stood. Tribal elders spoke of a place where the earth itself thirsted for more than water, where crops could grow from offerings that no decent person would make. This connection between ancient warnings and current events suggested that Ezekiel Thornfield had either stumbled upon or deliberately sought out knowledge that predated European settlement by centuries. It was during the harvest moon of October 1854 that the line between reality and impossibility finally dissolved completely. The accounts from this period are contradictory, fragmented, as if the very memory of those involved had been somehow corrupted, like grain left too long in a damp cellar. The first version of events, documented by Sheriff Holt in his official report, claims that Thornfield suffered what appeared to be a family tragedy during the harvest season. According to this account, his wife Martha and their 3 children, young Samuel, Rebecca, and baby Thomas, perished in what was described as a wasting sickness that came upon them sudden and fierce. The sheriff's report states that Thornfield, overcome with grief and isolation, began exhibiting signs of severe mental disturbance before disappearing entirely, leaving behind a farm that, despite its previous fertility, had become barren overnight. However, a second version emerges from the private journal of Dr. Fletcher, who wrote, "What I witnessed at the Thornfield property defies all medical knowledge I possess. The family appeared healthy when I last examined them in late September, yet when Sheriff Holt summoned me in November, I found no bodies, no signs of burial, no evidence of death, only Ezekiel himself, standing in his field with a look of terrible satisfaction, his crops taller and more abundant than any I had ever seen. When I asked about his family, he smiled and gestured to his harvest, saying only that they had given themselves to ensure the plenty would continue." The third version, perhaps the most disturbing, comes from a 13-year-old Cherokee boy named Running Wolf, who claimed to have witnessed the final harvest from the safety of the tree-line. This account speaks of a ritual conducted during the dark of the moon, where Thornfield used the mysterious scythe not to cut grain, but to gather the red blessing from those he claimed to love most. What makes this testimony especially unsettling is that the boy described the exact location of a hidden cellar beneath the farmhouse, a cellar that was indeed discovered weeks later, though what it contained was never officially recorded. During the final night of October, something occurred that caused every dog within 5 miles to howl in unison, a sound that witnesses described as lasting from midnight until dawn. The few official records of this event speak of an atmospheric disturbance of unknown origin, something that seemed to drain the very warmth from the air and leave behind a silence so profound it felt hostile. After this night, Ezekiel Thornfield was never seen again, and his remarkably fertile farm became a patch of earth where nothing would grow, not weeds, not grass, not even the hardiest of prairie plants. The last document from this phase is a note found nailed to the door of the abandoned farmhouse, written in what appeared to be dried blood, containing only the words, "The soil remembers what feeds it, and hunger, once awakened, never truly sleeps." The handwriting, according to experts, matched perfectly with samples of Thornfield's signature from land deeds and tax records. What remained after that terrible October was a silence that seemed to press against the eardrums of anyone who ventured near the property. The Thornfield homestead was never inhabited again. Visitors reported an overwhelming sense of being watched by hungry eyes, an atmosphere that seemed to carry the weight of something irreversibly wrong. The official records were systematically purged from county files over the following decade, a cleansing so thorough that it suggests coordination at the highest levels of local government. Only fragments survived, hidden in private collections and family papers, as if collective forgetting had failed to completely erase the memory of what had transpired in that isolated corner of Arkansas. Sheriff Holt spent the remainder of his term refusing to patrol the eastern districts, delegating all calls in that area to his deputies and never speaking publicly about his investigation. In his final years, he was known to cross himself whenever anyone mentioned exceptional harvests or unusually fertile soil, leaving behind only a leather-bound journal that his family burned unopened after his death. Decades later, during the Dust Bowl years of the 1930s, desperate farmers attempted to cultivate the Thornfield land, hoping that the passage of time had restored its legendary fertility. These attempts resulted in what local newspapers described as agricultural disasters of unprecedented scope. Not only did nothing grow, but the very attempt seemed to drain the vitality from neighboring fields as well. The farmers involved reported shared nightmares of being pursued through endless rows of corn that whispered their names, and several abandoned farming altogether, claiming they could no longer bear the sight of freshly turned earth. Today, the former Thornfield property remains a bare patch of earth, marked only by the crumbling foundation stones of what was once the farmhouse. No trees grow there, no birds nest in the vicinity, and local wildlife gives the area a wide berth. And sometimes, on nights when the moon is dark and the air is still, residents of modern Millfield report hearing the distant sound of a scythe cutting through grain, though where this harvest might be taking place, no living person has ever discovered. This file, like so many others that rest in the shadows of history, teaches us that time is not merely a river flowing forward, but also an ocean where certain truths remain submerged, waiting for the right moment to surface. The case of Ezekiel Thornfield confronts us with the fragility of our understanding of what nourishes life and what price might be demanded for abundance beyond nature's intention. The silence that now surrounds the place where the Thornfield farm once stood is not empty, it is a silence pregnant with possibilities, echoing with voices that time tried to silence. And perhaps it is better this way. Perhaps some secrets should remain buried, not from fear, but from respect for the mysteries that define the human condition and the terrible choices that desperation can drive us to make. If these words have found echo in your soul, if you feel the call to explore other files that official history preferred to forget, remain with us on this journey through the shadows of the past. Leave your mark in the comments, share these revelations with those who, like you, do not fear to look beyond the veil of accepted reality. For somewhere, in the dusty archives of the world, other documents await souls brave enough to hear them. The next file may already be searching for you. And until we meet again at the borders between the known and the impossible, remember, the silence that remains after truth is revealed is not an ending, but merely another kind of beginning.